right, Freddie, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to be here. I've never been a guest on a podcast. Can you believe that?
I can't believe that. How long have you been podcasting and you haven't been a guest?
Well, man, this is crazy, but I've been podcasting for a long time. To be fair, my current show is like my sixth podcast that I've started.
Really?
I started podcasting, I would say around 2010, like on and off.
Yeah.
So this will be like my sixth iteration of my podcast. But I've never been a guest. I've always kind of either been the host or co-host.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I feel really honored to have you on here, man.
No, well, thanks for having me, man. Definitely. I mean, I wanted to have you on my show, and then it now turns out you beat me to the punch. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm caught off guard here. Pero a ver cómo nos va.
Hey, yeah, man. Well, one day, if you guys could have me, I would be super honored to be on your
For
podcast.
sure, man. For sure.
And so, for the audience listening, this is Freddie from the Los Primos Podcast. Tell me a little bit about a little bit about your podcast, where you're from, where you're at right now.
Sure. So my name is Fredie Mejia. I am the co-host of My Primos Podcast. It literally came up with my primo Walter El Chicume. He called me one night and said, "Hey, man, there's no representation of Salvadoreños or Central Americans out there talking. Like he said, no disrespect. There's a lot of Mexican, personalities out there, a lot of Latino, Latinx personalities, especially Telemundo and Univision. They're all out of Miami. So that's the whole Cuban connection, right? And so there's a lot of that out
Mm-hmm.
there, but there's no Salvadoreño, no Centroamericano, no like people that are like me talking. And so he said, "You have podcast experience, you know how to do it, and let's do a podcast." Thought about it, and I go, "Man, it's been a while because I had started tons of them. I had a podcast that was about music, which the record labels emailed me saying stop playing my music. Then I
Oh,
had a podcast about video games. I love video games, which kind of just fell apart. No one really kind of jumped on it. Then I started a website about writing about video games and geek culture, which kind of fell off también. I did a podcast about short stories and kind of like radio plays. I would do like radio plays, and I should have my friend that was a voice actor. He would help me, and we do voices across from each other and add sound effects and stuff. Didn't go anywhere, but I still had a love for it. Like it had been a while, and I was like, man, you're right. I listened to a lot of Latino USA. I listened to NPR. I listened to like a lot of geek stuff too, like kind of funny. I know they're huge. They do a lot of like video game geek stuff, but there wasn't any Latino representation. Not only that, there was Salvadorian representations almost non-existent. And
yeah.
so we jumped on that, and we led it. And our first episode was called like I think it was about assimilation, and it was called "Life's a Mosh Pit," and we got to make room, right? And so we kind of have made room here, and we kind of it started out as like a very like politically charged and very like serious thing. We're gonna make a difference, and then it ended up with like, hey, you know what? I have a friend that does comic books. I like comic
Mhm.
books. I love art. I love video games. I love creative people. And we
Yeah.
started really going down the creative path and meeting a lot of Latinos, not only Centroamericanos, but Mexican artists, from España, from all over the world, really, and really focusing on the Latino side of it, Latinx side of it, and
Yeah.
really kind of gravitated towards them. And that whole group really embraced us. And my primos were kind of just when we go to conventions, oh, the primos are here, and it was cool. And I got to do what I like, and Walter got to do what he wanted, which was kind of ask weird, obtuse questions and make people nervous.
Yeah.
And that's where we are now, my Primos Podcast.
No, that's so cool. And I agree that you know, first of all, there's not enough of that kind of content out there, with the lens and by Latinos and specific, Latinos from their specific regions, your case El Salvador. But the fact of the matter is that Latino is so vast, and so the word is so small for something that's so big and so expansive and so
Love that. Yeah.
diverse. Yeah, so a lot of people say like, well, there's that Latino podcast. Why would you try to compete with them? It's like that's not what it is. It's like there's gonna be millions of different Latino podcasts, and they're all gonna have all their little niche. Maybe millions is too crazy, but
I
you
wish, man.
know,
I
but
wish.
right. I mean, one day, but they're all gonna have their little niche, their specific fan base, and like I've really found like yours is really specific to not only your style between you and your cousin, but also your outlook on these different kinds of pop culture references and nerd shit that I love.
I love it, man. You can't get away from it, right? I think it's like awesome that it's 2021 and like geekdom is cool and like fandom is dope. Everybody wants to be in on the conversation. Like, when would you think, as us little kids watching the Saturday morning X-Men cartoon, think that, man, we're gonna be talking about a potential new Wolverine in 2021, and like everybody at work knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, dude. I couldn't even imagine back then because, and to be honest, I couldn't afford always keeping up with the comic books. So it was only like whatever's on TV. Like
Exactly. We
I'm
were we
watching.
were not we were not allowed. Almost not. I mean, let me step back, but ese, como te digo, like our parents were about survival, right? Like they were about, can I feed my kid? Does he have clothes? He
Mhm.
doesn't need a fucking $3 paper book that's gonna fall apart in the rain. Like,
Exactly, dude.
pero look at me, like I'm right here. I'm 37 years old. My birthday was yesterday, or day before yesterday.
Oh yeah, happy
And
birthday, man.
thank you, man. And I'm here, look, with Magic the Gathering cards. Like, yeah, this
Hell
is what
yeah.
adult me wanted to do, right? Like, talk
Yeah,
about
dude.
video games, play Magic at the same time, representation. Because as I've learned through this thing, and it's really cool as you go through, podcasting, you kind of meet people that are willing to share the story because they
Yeah.
recognize it. And it's genuine, right? Like,
Yeah.
I like to tell my stories, and I love conversation, and I love hearing people because I find a connection when someone can tell you, "Hey, man, this is what I went through. Hey, I have a connection there." You could represent a piece of me in your work, in your art. So I know, like, we had a guest, at Terry Blas. He did Reptil. He does it for
Yeah, dude.
Marvel. And I was so like, dude, you're down to give me a shot. I still forget that he wants representation as much as we want it. So this community is big enough, like you said. There's niches, but I
Yeah.
think that slowly but surely people are realizing that there's plenty of room for everybody. Yo no me
Hmm.
voy a acabar todos. Trust me, the 12 people that listen to my show are not gonna take any ears away from yours. Like there's
Exactly.
plenty of people out there.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, to be honest, like I listen to at least three podcasts that have Latinos and they talk about nerd shit. It's just but each one is so different that I'm gonna listen to all three. Like, but also there's gonna be people that don't, right? So
Yeah.
and that like one specific one or versus the other, which is cool. But as far as like, so we just talked about, you being a kid, a nerd growing up. Where'd you grow up at, and what was that like?
I grew up in South Central LA, man. My parents
Yeah.
came during the migration. My mom came first, and my dad, and they fled the war. It was tough times in El Salvador during that time, and I was born in '84. That tells you my age right there. And I was born in LA. I was born in South Central. Well, to be fair, like Torrance, but we lived in LA. We lived in South Central. I grew up there my whole life. I thought I would never leave LA, man. To me, why would I go anywhere else? People want to move here. Like, I'm
Yeah.
already living here. Hollywood's that way. The beach is that way. 3-4 hours, I can be in the mountains. Like, I can be in Mexico in 2 hours. Like, why would I go anywhere else? But
Yeah.
I grew up with my sisters. I have three sisters. I am the second eldest. My sister one lives in Georgia. I have two in Cali still. And my primos, we all grew up like Latinos. Think about it, like your primos were might as well be brothers and sisters, because you always hung out with your primos and primas or your tias, tios, whomever. And I would say that it wasn't okay coming up with them, pero like anything else, como dice, you kind of block out some trauma sometimes, because you want to be like, Ma, we know what, I've gotten over that. But there was tough times, we were coming up. Like I told you, we would watch the TV and that's it. That's whatever's on TV is it. You didn't get to go read books, at the comic book shop. There wasn't any in South Central that I knew of.
Yeah.
It was all cartoons. And I had a friend that like took advantage, man. I remember being like in fifth or sixth grade and a kid at school, he had comic books and he would come and sell me comic books like secondhand, pero like twice the price they were. Like he would basically
Mm,
upsell me because I didn't get my hands on them, but I wanted it. I wanted to be involved in the conversation.
yeah.
But LA was tough, man. In the '90s, I would say I'm a '90s kid, and it was tough. But we kind of pushed through.
Yeah. And so you was there like a lot was it pretty active with like gang violence or like when you say tough like
Well, I
what was going
mean,
on?
Rodney King riots, for example, stand out a
Oh
lot,
shit.
man.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing for us. I lived right around the so put to perspective, right? South Central is a pretty big word when you say South Central. That is so huge.
Yeah.
People say I live in LA. You have to go, okay, where in LA?
Yeah.
Because they go, oh, I live here, etc. Right? I lived like 15 minutes from downtown LA. We lived right where Reginald Dennings was attacked and pulled from the truck, right on Florence and Normandy,
Oh
pulled out of the
wow.
truck and beat by the rioters during the Rodney King riots. I live like 3 or 4 blocks down from that, and then they burned down a whole swap meet that night. Where even my tío or somebody went over there and got like shoes, no TV dinners, like they went and looted.
Oh shit.
We were like watching the flames come up behind houses and buildings and apartments where we were living at.
Oh my
And even
gosh.
the what's crazy is like the next day, we all came out like the movie The Fog. Like everyone came out of their houses like super slowly, and it was so like it was snowing, but it was all the ashes
Oh my
from the fire
gosh.
settling, and we all
Yeah.
come out to the street, right? And out of nowhere, we see a little car just go, bzzz, and then another car comes right behind it with two guys pulling out guns and shooting at them, and we all
Oh.
flee. I'm what am I? I'm like 8 years old, maybe when this happens, but that jumps out at me as one of the biggest things. And yes, gang violence, robberies. My mom got robbed at a bus stop with me. I was like 4 years old. I remember
Uh,
it because my mom me compró un Snickers bar para callarme. Like, here's a Snickers bar. Be quiet. I'm being a whiny little kid. A guy runs up on my mom at the bus stop, starts taking her purse. My mom me levanta mi mamá. See, she grabs me, holding me. And then out of nowhere, the fucking guy like steals a chocolate from my back pocket, and then
oh.
he literally stole candy from a baby,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and then he took off running. And then at the same time, we're still looking at Bloods and Crips are a big thing. If you know about, I guess nowadays we got because everything is archaeology, everything is anthropology, as I've been told. Like during that time, we're looking at Bloods and Crips. If you're into, looking at, of course, MS-13, Los Salvadoreños are setting up shop during that time because of the Mexican gangs. So I grew up in a neighborhood full of MS-13 guys fighting Mexican gangbangers, and then lived a block away from black gangs called Hoovers, which were Crips, and then another block away were Bloods. And then I still had to walk to school every day and come home every day, beat up every few times. Um,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
I went through it, man. Like no bullshit. It was some real shit.
Yeah, dude, that's real as fuck. And this, I mean, I've grown up in harder parts, but that's nothing close to. I mean, what I went through is nothing close to what you're describing right now. But my experience is that a lot of times when you're in that kind of environment, what happens is you get closer to your family, your core nucleus. Is that kind of what? Is that did you and your family grow really tight because of that, or?
Yeah, I mean, my family were close. My mother, especially, she always was inculcaba que family first. Take care of your family first. Take care of your family. But first, también, she's always very much into helping people, even if no tienes. El que tiene menos tiene que dar más. Like she's always been about helping people, like tons, tons, tons. And I used to be like when people would like, I get it because she always believed that you're gonna Dios te va a bendecir, not you, but your kids. Like she's always about que tengas fe en Dios and that God's gonna get you there. And for a long time, man, I struggled with that, because I was very angry as a kid. I was very upset, like I wasn't allowed to be a little kid for very long, like
Mm,
you hear people, other people that I know say things like, I grew up so fast, I didn't have a childhood, like I had to translate court papers and immigration papers for my parents. I had to go to parent teacher conference and cry in front of my mom and tell on myself Like, yeah, mom, I did those things in español. Sí, yo lo hice, mamá, yo fui. And like, yes, we got close, but I remember during those times too, I was very like angry, even as a little kid, because I felt like, why can't I be like Zach and the gang on Saved by the Bell? Like, why can
Hmm.
they, be able to hang out at the beach and sing and have be the Zack Attack? Like my mom is more like, hey, this woman from work gave me a garbage bag full of clothes for you guys. Pick out what fits. I was grateful. I was very grateful to my mother, my sisters too. They relied on me a lot.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think I would say we were close, but I think that at a certain point in when I grew up, I kind of tried to split away and find my own way, but
Yeah.
it did bring us together because we had to survive.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it takes a village, and to survive in America, I realize it's kind of a crapshoot. So sometimes you get the hand you're dealt, and sometimes you can't play that hand. But it you kind of piecemeal sometimes the hands that you're dealt. Um, so you describe yourself a little bit as like the angry kid, like angsty, and you know I'm thinking like Raphael type character, right? You're like
I
Raphael.
wish. I wish. I think that how people tell stories and you kind of think, well, I remember it like this,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes it may be a little different. But yeah, I was angry, but I think that that the neighborhood made me that way. My
Yeah.
surroundings made me that way. Unfortunately, my dad made me that way. Sometimes my dad was a very toxic man. I will say those words now. Now he's a little different. He's older. Time changes things, man. Time does impact things differently. But at the time, my dad was very much like, you got to be strong. You're weak if you don't do this, and you got to be really buff. And action movies and Schwarzenegger and Stallone and like, why are you crying? Like all this. He was very much that guy. But I was very, and I was very, very, very overly sensitive. I was very close to my mom. I'm the only boy. I have sisters, so my dad
Hmm.
was hell bent. Que yo huevo iba a ser hombre, 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 and never, never falter, never cry, and I would think that I got to that point, like, okay, my dad and all the bullshit made me tough, but inside,
Hmm.
man, that's when you always kind of you peel back those layers. Raphael, man, when you look inside, man, he was hurt. He was sad, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always resonated with Raphael too. Like I was, for some reason I was kind of the angsty as a middle kid, like angsty, kind of, frustrated all the time. But, but my brothers were a good balance to that. Like my younger brothers, they were goofy and silly, and then my older brothers like really kind of like headstrong and straight. How
How's it
many?
for you?
Yeah, there's four of us.
So are you the turtles?
God, we've assigned ourselves specific turtles.
Ah,
I think, yeah, yeah, because my brother Charlie, he's like Michelangelo, he's goofy. And my older brother, he's kind of nerdier than me, even so he's like Donatello. And then Chris, he's like military, so he's like
he's Leo.
he's Leo. So, or we'll switch between me and him, Leo and Ralph, because he could
Which is
be,
normal. Things can
yeah,
change you. Like one minute you go back and go like, I love my childhood. It was
yeah,
amazing. I love it. I love it. And then you remember, man, I remember shit from TV from the 90s. I think I blocked out a lot of the stuff that I actually lived through. I'm thinking, oh yeah, cartoons were great.
yeah,
Like running outside was fun. And there was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. Like that's what I remember.
yeah, yeah. Did you get to get along with your sisters a lot? How many sisters you got?
I have three sisters. I have an older one. Uh, she came over permanently from Salvador when she was like 13 or 14. She's
Nice.
four. We're all 4 years apart, so we have a little
Oh
gap
wow.
there. Kind of like whenever the mundiales happen, my mom and dad figured out this is the time. My dad was
There you
ready
go.
to go, so every 4 years, we had a kid pop up. So I have two younger sisters and I have an older one. I got along great with but I think this is the thing. I get along with them well, like in pockets of time. Like my
Yeah.
youngest sisters, because my mom and dad had to work a lot, I kind of became kind of like the parental figure. So yeah, I kind of babied them, took care of them. um, just did my part as much as I could. And then when my sister came along, she kind of took that on, right? My oldest sister. And then from there, I kind of started pulling away, and because I think right around that time I started, trying to come by myself and find myself, and I don't know, we kind of drifted a little bit. She was a stranger in a strange land, She grew up in El Salvador, and then she came here when she was 13, and everything she had to go through to acclimate herself, learn the language, find friends, like deal with us never knowing us, right? Over phone calls and,
Yeah.
visiting. But to acclimate yourself, having three other kids running around, there is a little bit of tension there. But overall, yeah, I mean, I got along with my sisters. Now we're much, much closer. We're older. We're all getting families started. So,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody's much closer now. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And so, Chicoma is closer to your age, right?
Yeah,
So,
Chikuma's just a year younger than me. His
okay,
mother is my aunt.
nice. So you guys kind of grew up like brothers, like as you say. So you guys were probably super tight, huh?
Yeah, man, we are. I would say we're super tight during that time. I mean, Chikume was here, man. You can have a whole show on Chikume because
Yeah.
we grew up together. We were right then and there, man, as babies, side by side. Mi tía los cuidaba uno a otros, and I even walked Walter to school. Like we were homies, man. We were like little brothers to each other. But then at a certain point, I think when Walter was like 9 or 10, el papá se los llevó a Salvador, and they lived there for like 6, 7 years.
Oh wow.
Let me slow down. Be fair to him, like 5 or 6 years. But they were
Okay.
gone for that long. That means
Yeah.
I had Walter, Edwin, and Samuel and Erica. Those are my cousins. And then poof, they were gone.
Dang.
Like I didn't see them anymore. So I didn't have it. I lost that connection. I lost that brother. And
Yeah.
that was hard for me. But as you kind of said, as I told you, as a little kid, you kind of only remember the good stuff. You kind of do block out those hard times.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're what, like 10 or around or
I was about 10 or so, I would
10?
say. I would say I think I don't remember what how old he was when he left. I do remember we were fairly young.
Yeah.
Um, I remember when he came back. When he came back, I was damn near out of high school
Oh
when he
yeah.
came back. Yeah, so llegó Walter and Chikume and llegó sus brothers, and they kind of just I'm all like, hey, and they forgot English. Se les
Dang.
olvidó el inglés. Like, they just forgot English because toda la vida. I mean, you're in Guatemala right now. I mean, you think
Yeah.
about it, like you're not walking around just speaking English all day.
Yeah.
La mayoría va a hablar español. So that's all they did, and so we had to kind of reintroduce each other and kind of mold that into some kind of a relationship. And thankfully, we're adults again and kind of rehashing and reconnecting, and it's gotten better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so this might be my bad, but I I was thinking Walter and Chikume are the same person. Is that
That's exactly it. Walter
okay?
Chikuma, the same person. Yeah, man.
Okay, just making sure because I was like, oh shit, is there
He has
more?
too many aliases. He has too many aliases. He's an enigma wrapped in a riddle in a Wrigley's chewing gum wrapper. No, he goes through this whole thing about he wants to really embrace the indigenous cultures that
Hell
we have
yeah.
forgotten, And he's right. Like I don't know. Mira, me da vergüenza sometimes, but I've gotten kind of through it on my own, talking to people here, doing this podcast sometimes. My podcast, sorry, I'm used to being on the podcast, but
Mm,
that it's okay to admit that you're not all knowing and all knowledgeable about where you came from, because the colonizer wiped our minds, they burned our scrolls, they don't want to tell our stories, and it's okay to admit, hey, I don't know what that means, or yo no sé, no conozco su historia, o esa tradición no
mm,
la conozco, right?
yeah.
It's okay. But Walter did. He was able to go back at a certain age, live all these traditions, costumbres, right? And come back from it and still have that and holds them dear. And then he looks at the time he spent in El Salvador.
Yeah.
He doesn't consider it a bad thing. For him, it's like, oh, I'm glad I went through it.
Of course.
For me, I would be like, fuck that. You mean like, hold on, you got the internet last week? Like I need, I need to be able to run around, do what I want, go to McDonald's whenever I want, and be a city kid, be a spoiled
Yeah.
city kid aquí, like.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Chikume likes to embrace that, and he says that he's learning not what a little bit, little by little, and siete and not what is Chikume, and he likes to call himself el siete or el Chikume. So that's where I came from.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
interesting. So yeah, I've been learning up on Nahuatl as well. If you read my book, the word Nawali comes from the Nahuatl language.
yeah, man. I read your book. Like, can we talk about your book? Cause I dig your book.
If you want to talk about it for a sec, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Yeah, again, I'm a guest, but I mean, when I like something, right? So
Okay.
I dig the book. I'm not gonna give any spoilers to anybody that hasn't checked it out. I'm gonna take over for a second.
Okay, there
But
you go.
no, I dig it, man. Like I really like what you're doing with it. I like the emphasis. It's not your typical stuff either. I'm talking in generalities to not spoil it for anybody, but it's not your typical thing. But it is se presta mucho a humanidad. Like it's pretty like you're getting to know a family, and it's very funny. Like it's not over somebody's head. It's not for me, right? I have to understand it's not for the 37-year-old dude that loves comics. It's for kids. Like we forget that, right? That I'm
Yeah,
writing books for kids. I'm writing books for that audience that is gonna see that book and go, "Oh, cool, that looks interesting. I want to check it out."
yeah.
So I dig it. I'm invested. I mean, I think maybe for my show we'll chat about that. But like,
Okay.
I want to know kind of like these characters, are they connected to your family some way? Because I feel like from what you told me, from that, is there? And that's the only question I'm gonna ask you. Is there like a
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
connection with the family in there?
Yeah, man. That's honestly, yeah. It's four characters inspired by me and my three brothers, and yeah, no, it is a. I did take the lens of okay, this could be a kid's book because I want to introduce them as kids. So why not write it in a kid's like from a like a kid's as a kid, yeah, as a kid book with a kid audience. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's nice for me and my brothers too because when we read it, we're kind of like I'm making an exaggeration of our personalities, so we could kind of be like, oh yeah, like I could see Chris doing that, or like I could see So my character is the red guy, the red kid, kind of the cocky, self-absorbed guy, and so
Okay. I don't know you well enough yet, but okay.
yeah, just like life has humbled me, but let's just say that I kind of started off really, really pretty cocky kind of
Cool.
kid.
I'm
So
excited to see where it goes. I'll be real with you. So, we'll chat about that maybe on my show, but like I really dig it, man. Keep going for it. Definitely.
appreciate it, man. Yeah, I'm gonna keep writing it, and like the whole indigenous cultures, dude. That the thing that Chikuma is doing is I think more people should be should do that, or at least we have the responsibility of bringing it to the light when we are researching it. Like personally, I am, and it's
Yeah.
cool. His name's Chikuma, which means seven, and I'm reading the
Yeah.
book. I'm reading the Popol Vuh. You ever heard of that?
No, no, what is it?
It's like it's like kind of like the Bible for Mayans.
Okay.
And there's this character or a deity named Seven Macaw. Like that's his name, Seven Macaw. So I
Mm,
thought that was pretty interesting.
that is cool.
Yeah. So anyway,
I don't want to hijack your show, man. I'm just
no man, you're good. Sorry. No, you're good. But so it sounds like Chikume and you kind of like complement each other in a certain way, huh?
we do, man. We do compliment each other. We don't always agree on things, but that's fun, right? That's good conversation, and it's genuine. And I feel like at times I'm like the older brother. I am older. I am older, but like I'm the older brother of these guys, and kind of they come to me. They're like, "Oh, hey, man, like." I don't know. I introduced his younger brother, to anime. Like he just wasn't. He knew like Super Campeones, right? We all knew that growing up. But then, oh, this is anime. Check this out. Check that out. Or his brother was really into music. Oh, here's Metallica. Like, let's go buy a guitar. Let's go buy an amp. Like, I kind of pulled them in, like if they were my little brothers. So yeah, I was very close with them once they got back, and then I moved to Texas. A few years later, and we kind of lost touch and reconnected later on.
Nice. So how did you end up making the decision to go to Texas for college? Right.
No, so
Oh.
it's like it's a different story. It's kind of interesting. So
Okay.
great format for it, by the way, because it's just talking. But
Yeah.
I was working at Yoshinoya. Yoshinoya is like a Japanese fast food place, right? And I was going
Cool.
to school. I was going to film school. I was going to LA Film School. It was there in Hollywood. And I wanted to do like audio engineering, film editing. I wanted to do that. I wasn't confident in like my writing to be like, oh, I'm gonna write the greatest movie ever. When I was in high school, I loved writing, and I still do like writing. And I was like, I'm gonna write the next great American novel. You know, like fuck John Steinbeck. Like we need the next great American novel should be a Latino story. Like
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, to be honest, between Latino story, it should be like uh indigenous people story, Native American story. Like those need to be the next great American novel. Like we give too much love to Steinbeck and Salinger. Like, okay, I like Catcher in the Rye, but at a certain point, a rich white boy whining is just not America anymore. You know.
Right.
Um, so I went to film school, because I wanted to just do something creative, and I figured if I can't make it big with a story, they're always going to need a guy to do the editing. They're always going to need someone to do the audio engineering.
Hell yeah.
And I went there. And so while I was working, I met a girl and I fell in love.
There you go.
And she one day told me like, hey, I'm moving to Texas, man. My family is telling me we're going to leave. She lived in Compton. And she's like, I'm leaving the hood. Me and my family are going to move to Texas. And I go, Texas? In my head, I'm like, tumbleweeds and cowboy hats and guns. That's all I thought of Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Yosemite Sam. And so I'm thinking there, she's telling me like, hey, we were dating for like a year at that time. And I kind of sat back and told her, hey, why don't you just stay with me in Cali? Move in with me. We'll make things work. And she was down. And at the last minute, her dad, he's like, hey, man, I think you're a cool dude. I think you're a good fit for my daughter. Come with us.
Wow.
So I'm like, And I sat there. I remember I was in LA, man. For me, there's no place better.
Yeah.
I mean, they write songs about it. People want to live there. Like, it's LA. Everybody wants to be in LA, right? And I had nothing going on. Like, I felt that they hit a wall where you've been doing the same job for so many years. School was kind of just repetitive. And then you kind of just look up and go, man, I've never been anywhere. Like, and I love this girl. And I go, fuck it. I don't have kids. I don't have anything holding me down. Like, and I said, fine. And I jumped. I said, yeah, I'll go with you.
Hell
And
yeah.
so I took that leap, man. And a few months later, I moved to Texas and Fort Worth. And years went by, man. I say years. This was back like in '06. And, we started setting up our own place, started going, me and her, kind of doing things. And then, we got married. We had a son shortly after that. I moved back to LA for like a year. And then I moved back to LA, and then my wife got pregnant. We had lost two children before that. She had
Mm.
miscarriages, so it
Sorry to
was
hear that.
tough. No, it was. Thank you. It was hard for her. Obviously, is the biggest blow. I mean, I was young. Man, I was 22, 23 years old, and um, I was just trying to take care of things. I was in that survival mode. That parents taught us. Just get to the next job, make as much money as you can. Um, and I had to move back to LA to work. And then from there, my wife calls me on the phone one day, and she goes, "Hey, she got a job working at a pavilion, it's like a grocery store." And she goes, "Hey," and she called me. I was at work. I'm working like crazy. She's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I go, "What's up?" She's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant, and I'm gonna quit my job because I'm having this baby. I'll talk to you later." And just hung up the phone. So I'm
There
at
you
work, like, hold on, I just lost a source of income. And my friend tells me, like, what's wrong, dude? And I go, I think I'm having a baby. And they're like,
go.
really? We should get back to work because
Nope.
you got to work. So, yeah. And then she had my son. Thankfully, it all worked out for us. We were super
Yeah.
excited. It was, God, man, all 100% God, taking care of us there. Uh, Flash forward a few months later, LA is not the same anymore.
Mm,
Home is not home anymore. You know, like you, it is true. Look, it is thinking you can't go home again. Like
hmm.
once you're gone for so long, LA's too crowded. LA's too expensive. LA is just doesn't feel safe anymore. All my friends are like starting their own thing. Some friends are no longer friends. Like everything's completely different. And so
Yeah,
me and her decide to have to, you know what? The best place for us is back in Texas.
yeah,
And that's why we ended up here. Since then, we've been in Texas, and uh Chikume ended up randomly showing up like a few years later. He's like, "Hey man, I'm done with school." He's an engineer, civil engineering, focusing on civil engineering.
yeah.
uh, I'm gonna get a gig out there in Texas. I need somewhere to stay. And I'm like, dude, come through. And we hadn't talked in years during that point. We had maybe a couple years, 2 years or so. He came
Wow.
back into my life, stayed with me for a while until he got on his feet. And then he is now in Austin. But now we're the ones, the primos in Texas. That's how we're here.
Hell yeah, that's what's up. And so you're still in the DFW area?
Yeah, man, DFW now. Um, yeah, DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth. I thought it. I promise you, man. There's some things I do miss from the West Coast. I miss the weather. I miss the beach. I miss some of the real Mexican food. I'll say that. Uh, but Texas is home. You know, Texas is home now.
Yeah, dude, I love Texas. I lived in Houston for 5 years before moving out here, and coming from Indiana, which is weird that there's Mexicans up there, but there's Mexicans everywhere.
Right?
Yeah,
I heard
man.
there's like a huge concentration of like Centroamericanos in like shit, what's it called? Iowa.
Yeah,
Like a
Iowa.
very, very big concentration of them in Iowa. And I was like, what the fuck are they in Iowa for? But it's there, dude. Huge, huge concentration that I never knew
Yeah,
about.
wherever they got plants and wherever they got farms,
Sure.
they're gonna find a way to get Mexicans out there. Um, yeah, but that's pretty cool. So when you moved to Texas originally, or as you're out there, like what kind of work are you doing out there while you're
I
living
was
there?
doing, look, this is a crazy thing, right? I was a student and I worked at a fast food restaurant. That's it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh,
But
okay.
at the time, when I got here, my dad was like, man, what are you going to do for work? I don't know. I'll find something. What do you mean you're going to go somewhere with no work? He's like, no. So he got me a job at a bakery,
Oh,
like a
okay.
real big bakery here in North Texas. And it was like
Nice.
an hour and a half from where I currently live.
Okay.
So I had to, in the same day, like get here, buy a car, and go to an interview like the next day to get this gig, right?
Oh shit.
So I hop in this car. At the time, they're like, hey, we'll pay you $13 an hour. I'm like, woo, shit, that's dope. Because I'm only making like here in Texas, minimum wage right now in 2021 is $7 and change, like 7.25 is minimum wage here.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
at the time, it was like five something. My
Yeah.
wife went to a grocery store here around the corner. It was called Terry's. I don't know if they had them in Houston or not, but they were like really big. And they went in there and she said, "Oh yeah, we'll pay you 3.25." I took that fucking application, I ripped it in half in front of them. Like, nope,
Yeah.
there's no fucking way you're working for $3 an hour. And they were legitimately offering 3.25 an hour for her to work at a grocery store.
Bastards.
Um, it's insane, man. Se aprovechan de la gente, dude. They really do.
Yeah.
Um, so I went to this interview, hour and a half drive. My brother-in-law went with me because he was out here, right?
Yeah.
So we drive up there, hour and a half, in this little beater car that I bought for like $800 cash. Boom, I bought it. Walking down the street, I saw this car. I bought it cash and needed a car. Lo lanzamos hasta allá, all the way to Denton. Denton's like an hour and a half from here.
Yeah.
And so I get there, I interview. Oh yeah, cool. Well, oh, you're so and so's kid who knows so and so. Whatever. They got me a gig. You're hired. Well, no, say, well, no, not hired. We'll give you a call. Dope. Same thing for my brother-in-law. We'll give you a call. But I'm pretty much confident that I got it. On the way back, ese puto carro falls apart.
Oh
It
my
fucking
god.
it's a stick. The clutch stops moving. The car rolls to the side. I'm stranded on the side of the highway.
Oh fuck.
And then I had to call people on a payphone because they were still around. I didn't have
Yeah.
no cell phone like that. And I get a buddy to come tow us, grab us. I told them, you know what? Fuck this car. I guess I abandonalo. Like I was like so mad at her. Leave this shit here. I don't care.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, we can fix it. Okay, so he helped me tow it. I get a phone call the next day, hey, are you ready to work? We need you to work tonight. And I
Oh
go, I don't
shit.
have a car. They were like, okay, well, sorry to hear that. I guess you can't work. Then the phone rings again, and they're asking for my brother-in-law. Hey, can you come work? He's like, I live in the same house. That's the only car we got. We can't get to work. So yeah, that was Texas when I got here, dude. I did that, and luckily I started working. As soon as I did that, I started working. I applied online everywhere,
Yeah.
and I got into cell phones. I started working for a company that did tech support for Verizon. So like they did all when you used to walk into stores, because the world's changed now. You'd walk into a cell phone store and they would fix your phone for you or set it up for you, or hey, something's wrong with my phone, etc. Right? And I was
Hmm.
one of those guys. So that
Nice.
company worked for Verizon to fix phones, and I was with Verizon. I want to say, man, like almost 4 or 5 years.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those gigs are they're pretty sweet. Like they're not like people don't think about it, but that you can live pretty good off of those gigs for a little while.
You can, and then the world changed, because then it's like, oh, we need smartphones now. Because I
Yeah.
started working there right around when the iPhone came out, the very first iPhone. And so the revolution of the smartphone, internet, all these things, right? So it was cool. I was in the mix of all that stuff. Eventually, it got boring, and I became a salesperson, and then quotas, and then expectations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mind you, during all this, that's when I moved to LA. I moved back with Verizon. They were good, like you said. There was a good because they took care of me. I had benefits, and I was able to have my son.
Yeah.
But eventually, I got bored. Like we talk
Yeah.
about, like I was always into creative stuff, so my creativity was gone. It was I'm a salesperson. I'm a technical support person. There is nothing else in between.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you do after that?
I had a friend convince me. I say this, but I think I thank him now. It was a tough time, but I thank him. He was like, "Hey, man, you ever consider doing advertising?" Like,
Mm.
advertising. He's like, "Yeah, man. Businesses need advertising. Like I work for the Yellow Pages." So yeah, it was like I said, right around the time of like the internet really booming. They're like,
Okay.
"Come work for the Yellow Pages. This shit's been
Oh
around for
shit.
100 years." I'm like, okay. He's like, why can't I just like go on the internet? This was before Googling it became a thing. This was like I still was rocking a BlackBerry. You know what I mean? Like this was like Yahoo was still a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why would you do that? He goes, no, Yellow Pages, man. Trust me, you get paid like crazy. And I went, I learned about advertising. I learned how to advertise product. I learned ROI, return on investment. I learned how to talk, face to face with businesses because I did it at Verizon. They would send me to places and go, hey man, your I don't know, your airline needs business. All right, the Yellow Pages. We're AT&T Yellow Pages. We've been around forever. You want to be in this book? And then, oh, but the internet. Nah, don't worry about the internet. Who's really the guy spending money? Is it the 20-year-old out of college? Nah, they're broke. You want the 50-year-old with money to spend. They're the ones that are looking at the Yellow Pages, right?
Hell yeah.
It was a pretty good pitch if you think about it, right? Oh, I guess you're
Yeah.
right. I do. That's what I want. I want the old guy that's willing to pay extra money for stuff, and I don't have to worry about them not coming through with the money, etc. So I did okay. I was doing advertising for them for a while, and then the internet just kind of again came like crazy, started showing up. Hey, Google became a thing. Android phones became a thing, and the Yellow Pages was dying. Like it was on its last legs, and so from there, from the Yellow Pages, I took off, dude. I said, hey, man, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And I thank my friend because he pulled me out of the retail space. I learned how to do advertising. I did that for a while too, like with other companies. And then I got into finance. I started doing sales on the phone again. Sales, 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 sales. And then eventually now I do insurance for a finance company. Tons of
Nice.
fun, right? Tons of fun. But at the same time, between all this though, I'm still trying to do me. I'm thinking because I don't know if you go through this or not, man, or you maybe you did because you took off and left stuff behind to go where you're at. But
Hmm.
I hit a wall. Like I everybody I feel. you hit a wall at a certain point with what you're doing. And so you start thinking, man, like you almost self sabotage. You almost don't do as good. You don't want to show up anymore. You start kind of, dragging your feet. You're not as peppy as you used to be. And my wife told me, she's like, "Oh, it's about that time, huh?" And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "This is kind of like you have a cycle. When you're bored, when your brain is just like, okay, I got this. You're kind of done. You're sick of a place." And I've learned really fast in my head. I go, it's because I'm not made for this,
Yeah.
and that's why I started just doing other stuff.
Yeah, man, it's that's what's up. So I mean, it's interesting how many phases like I think everyone has to go through, like humans in general. Like we were talking earlier, I was this cocky kid growing up, but and life humbled me along the way. But um, you know, just relative to how long we can live, we're we're pretty young. So the last 10 years could be a whole the last 10, 20 years could be the process of finding yourself and really figuring out like who you are, because I know people that are 50 plus, almost 60, and they are just realizing, oh shit, I don't know myself. Who am I? And so this process that you're going through in these different jobs, like what are you learning about yourself?
I'm learning that I do have talent. Like you got to give yourself credit, right? Like I do have talent, but it's kind of guiding it. Like I told my son, like, oh, if when he does his homework or when he does his book, he does boxing too and stuff like that. I said, "Hey man, focus on this." And he goes, "I am." He goes, "No, because if you were focusing as much as you focus on Undertale or whatever it is you're playing, Minecraft, you would kill it." And I'm the
Mhm.
same way though. If I could sit there and spend 3 hours cracking my head open over a Magic the Gathering deck, but if I did the same thing for my writing, or if I did the
Mhm.
same thing for the podcast, like I know advertising, I fucking did it. Like I know how to
Yeah.
advertise, I know how to put dollars behind it, and it's worth to invest, and it's worth to put a logo out there. All that shit's worth it,
Yeah.
especially if you want it, right? I've learned that I stand in my own way, and that's the truth. Like it's kind of shitty to say it out loud, but it's a reality. Like I stand in my own way, but también I can't beat myself up about it because life, like you said, man, life happens, and sometimes you're not prepared for it. But I learned that I have talent. It's just not streamlined where it needs to go, unfortunately. Being real with you, you know?
No, yeah, I feel you. That's real. I mean, like unfortunately, as people of color and minorities in the United States, I feel like the need to always be finding something that is a job, quote unquote, or something that is paying the bills, or so on and so forth. That coupled with the fact that we don't see people like us doing the jobs that we theoretically want, and we don't know people that do those that got down that path, right? So if someone would have sat you down at a young age and said, hey, you are good at writing, you just got to practice and practice and practice, even the best people have to practice,
Yeah.
it might have been a different story. But you're not getting that input. Same with me. Like it wasn't really like, oh, you're good at drawing, cool, it's a hobby, like go like do something that'll make you money, right? uh so and it's never too late though. It's never too late, just like practicing, just getting that practice. I mean, some of the most impressive success stories are people who started at in their 40s or in their late 30s or in their 50s even. So shit, you got time, bro.
Hey man, I'm realizing that, like I told you, like I sit here and I do this show, right? I do a show every week.
Yeah.
I had a friend that has a video game website called what's it called? It's sad because he always talks about it with me, and now I'm blanking about it. But it's called Level One Gaming,
Okay.
level1gaming.com. And they do everything from pop culture, fandom, video games, etc. Right? And he asked me to write stuff for him. He's like, "Hey man, write opinion pieces. I love fighting games. Because video games, I love that stuff." And I always had this thing where Latinos have a connection to fighting games because the fact that those were the games that you got the most money's worth out of your quarter. Because your mom giving you a quarter at the laundromat, you made that fucking quarter last because you
Hmm.
weren't getting another one. And so you got good at fighting games. That competition is in us. Like, hey, I'm going to make this happen. We take the most risks and we can pull it off, and that's why I have this big rush when I play fighting games. And I was writing stuff for them for a while. But then, I had a lot of stuff going on. My wife got ill. Um, she went through breast cancer treatment last
Ooh,
year. So that was tough for us, but she's out of it. She's in remission right now. She's cancer
thank
free.
God.
Oh yes, thank
Congrats,
God.
man.
No, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then we get back into the show. I'm doing the show because it is an outlet. Like Chikume will say sometimes, he goes, "Hey man, it's therapy." Like talking out loud, and it's not just you playing radio in your room anymore. Like someone's listening out there. So it helps. It really does. I'm hoping that I can get out of this funk. I did start writing again. I did. Ask some good friends. Check out some of my work. Like I said, when you start doing these podcasts, and I made a good connection with people. Think about it this way: I know people that make comic books for a living. I know people that um, work on TV shows and cartoons. I know these guys that have been in the industry forever, and they're always the main ones telling me, "Oh, just make it happen." That's always the advice I hear. Just do it. And I'm like, why haven't I put something in front of these guys and go, hey man, I can't draw, but this is a dope ass story. Can you make something happen? Like, I don't know why I'm hesitant. I think it's
Yeah,
that whole like old school way of thinking, like you can't ask for help, just figure it out on your own. You know what I mean?
yeah, man. Yeah, and do you think it could be a little bit like imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah, man. Definitely. I feel like I haven't earned it, or I don't deserve it, or I haven't done enough to deserve it.
Hmm. Yeah, dude, that's really that's a big, as far as people of color, man. That's a huge obstacle for us. I deal with it on a day to day, just like the fuck am I doing here? Like, what, why do I think that I'm the guy that can make a comic book, right? But and then I turn it off, and then I'm like, all right, back to drawing. But it has to. There's a process of like getting to that point, or it's just a process of just doing it, like just writing it, send it to me, shit, and then because I don't matter, and then after I say it's good, then send it to then
I mean,
send
but
it
you
to
know
the
how it
next
is,
guy.
man. And you write something or create something. The hardest fucking part is hitting that send button
Yeah,
or the execute or what is it? Post. You're like, oh man, what happens? Like think about it. Like when you put your comic book out there, your comic out there, you're like, oh man, here goes, and you start checking. Did someone read it? Did someone
yeah,
read it? How many views do I have? How many views do I have? And
yeah,
like, I don't know. I always feel like, hey man, if it's, I felt like this is what I feel like, right? If I sent you something and I don't hear from you in a week, it's not
he
good
hates
enough.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, he hates it. You know.
I had that same experience. I had like a three, like literally everyone I sent it to, literally like five different people. They didn't. I'm like, hey, can you read this and let me know what you think? And I'm like, it's on Friday, and on Monday, I'm like, they haven't hit me back up.
They're like they hate it.
Yeah, and I'm like, fuck. And I'm talking to my girlfriend. Luckily, my girlfriend, she has sometimes more confidence in me than I do. And I'm just like, and I'll tell her this, and she's like, no, they're just busy, dude. Like they got shit to do. Like,
I mean, it is true. Like my wife, she supports me what I'm doing, but my wife also won't read my stuff. I'm
yeah,
like, here, check this out, and she's like, can you just tell me what it's about? And I go, can you just read it? Like,
yeah,
can you read it? And she's like, that's just like, can you just tell me? Like, I don't know if it's a chore. It's hard to make
yeah,
someone read something now. Even a comic book that has pictures, people are kind of like, I guess I can read it while I'm on the toilet. Like, is
yeah,
that like? I mean, like, I don't know. You would expect the people that are closest to you would be like, down. I got you. Let's go. I'll
yeah.
read it for you. No problem. I've had a couple that reached out to me. Like, I'll put them out there. They're good guys, dude. Like, the guys from Five Meats Comics,
Okay,
real cool dudes. They're very open to like collaborating with anybody. They have their own books out there called Mashbone and Grifty. Really fucking funny. Comedy comic book by Latinx artists. This is their shirt, Latinx.
nice.
They were able to read one of my stuff, and they told me, dude, this is dope. Like, there's something here. So that gave me a little motivation recently to start dabbling back in writing and seeing what I can do with it. Me and Chikume had the idea for a comic book. Like in the beginning, we started doing this. Hey, we have this cool idea, and then that's it, poof, an idea, but nothing ever came of it.
Yeah. I mean, shit. Like the non Wally book that I've been, comic that I've been working on. The idea came to me probably almost 2 years ago. So like it was just a matter of like plugging away. Like I read 2 different books on how to like write a script or create a story, and then I had to read up and learn how to draw because I could draw certain things, but I couldn't. And then just like one page, just start on one page, and then it took me 10 months to finish the first the first issue. It's just like so it's just like don't beat yourself up because I feel like you're beating yourself up that you haven't done it.
I
And
have, man. I do because I think back. Look, you heard my episode last week with Terry Blas, right?
yeah.
And I love what he told me, even without asking him. He's all like, "Dude, finish is better than perfect."
Yeah.
Like I'm like, damn, that resonates.
Yeah, dude. And that's literally my whole thing. Like if you scroll back on my Instagram, I was not a good artist like 2.5 years ago. Like I was not that good. Like so, but I would post it just to push myself, just to put it out there. Like I don't like. Let me just get over this fear because right now no one's following me and no one gives a fuck. But but sometimes the prejudgment of yourself is what's keeping you from doing it. Like you're judging yourself before you do it, so you don't
Yeah,
start it. So
I'm a
like,
really good critic, though. I'm a really good critic. Like I'm really good. Like I'm
yeah,
really good at like, what is this worth reading? Is this worth doing? I mean, I nitpick. My wife hates
yeah,
it, but I'm a pretty good critic. Like I'm a pretty. I
yeah,
pop my collar because Walter makes fun of me too. Because like, I know you said it's good and it's good. Like I get it. Like,
yeah, yeah,
but like you said, I'm my worst. I'm my own worst enemy. I'm standing in my own way.
yeah.
Sadly, yeah, it's just being real, man. Like if we're talking out loud about it, it's like, yeah, I'm standing in my own way. You know.
I mean, I think you'll get there, man. It's just the best, and I'll move on. I'll move on after this. But the best advice that I've gotten for art, and this is art and writing because I had to write the script for my comic, and I'm
Yeah.
writing more. Is be a bad art machine. Like you got to make a lot of bad shit before it's good. And then you know what? Some of the best shit is actually kind of bad. Like if you look back at some of the stuff we watched as kids or some of the stuff we watch nowadays, like
Yeah.
what I don't know what movie I watched recently. I was like, someone wrote this and they're making millions of dollars and like what the fuck? What
Yeah.
the fuck did
You're
I just
right.
watch?
You're right. Someone paid them. Someone
Yes.
paid them money for that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Well, and I would really love to read your stuff. So whenever you get a chance, send it over.
Sure. I'll send you
And
some stuff. Definitely.
yeah, and I don't think it has to be like, here's my vision. I kind of want to create my own Marvel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like my own image. So when I get to a point where I can, I mean, shit. If you want to work on something together, let's do it.
Dude, I'm always down to collaborate. That's a shitty thing. Like I feel like I need that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, right? I need that someone to pull my hands and go, come on, let's do it. I think I need that
Yeah.
like is a jalon to kind of get it done. But like that's what I found doing this stuff too. Like when I talk to people, they're especially if you're being genuine, people will hear you out at least. If it's shitty, it's shitty. Okay, it's not a good story, right? But we can at least have to put myself out there. I think I'm talking myself into it as we speak. But yeah, I mean, I'll put myself out there a little more and kind of not beat myself up as much. And the amount of creative people that I have around me, man, it's like, why haven't I done it already, right?
Yeah. I mean, but like I said, don't focus on why you haven't done it already. Just just do something. Just do the next thing.
Yeah,
So that's the anyway. I would love to work with you, man, and it's gonna be. I think it'd be pretty dope if we can create something, and then who knows? We'll be the what is it? Those Fab Six, Fab Five that started Image or whatever.
yeah, man, make it happen.
Oh yeah, dude. So after working at the damn cell phone place. What brought you to doing all starting again with the podcast and stuff?
Well, Walter, right, Chikume, he did tell me like, "Hey, man, representation. Like your
Yeah,
voice, you have a good mind for this. You have a great cadence. Like you, people like hearing your nasally drone. You know, like uh, you people will listen when you speak. There's weight in what you say. He pumped me up.
yeah,
You know, and it's funny because the next day I'm like, hey man, I got everything ready to go. And he's like, oh shit, I was drunk. He's like, I don't really want to do this. um, but we did. You know, I kicked. Now I'm like, hey, I'm invested. Like we're gonna make this happen.
hell
You know,
yeah,
and I came up with the name. We're talking about a bunch of different names. And I'm like, oh dude, I think this is our show. We're primos. And it's funny to simply say, hey, have you heard My Primos podcast? You're like, oh, your cousin has one? He goes like, and it's kind of funny, you play on words, but Latinos, we all have primos, right? And I look at it, we call each other primos. And that's kind of why I wanted that community.
yeah,
And I went with the podcast. I said, fuck it, man, I'm in, let's do it. And like I said earlier, it kind of just rolled into this whole new thing. And we really touched on creatives, comic books, and it just grew, became its own thing. And now I focus a lot on creatives, not only artists, but that's who I've been kind of touching on. But we talk about, you know, people that are in the industries of like engineering. We had a whole episode about engineers. You know, we had a whole thing about that whole electrical engineer, environmental engineer. I had, you know, like I was like, oh wow, like you know, I'm learning all this stuff as I go
that's dope.
because like representation, right? Like you know, they say, oh, vas a ser un ingeniero. Okay, cool. What does that do? And then you learn, oh shit, that word is so it's so small for something so big, like you said, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's cool. And now I'm learning all these things. I'm meeting new people. I hope I'm making good impressions.
yeah,
And that way I make friends and I'm able to be in this community. And hopefully one day when I push my stuff out there, they're there to back me up, you know?
yeah, dude. That's what's up. And I agree with your cousin. Like your voice is, it comes off really good in podcasts, and I love listening to you. And your interview, this last interview, was so pro, dude. I thought I was listening to like, a syndicated radio show, and I was like, damn, dude,
Thank
this
you,
is
man.
so dope. And you're a good storyteller, man. It sounds like that's you've been working on that skill, whether it's writing or talking. Um, that's what this is about, telling the story.
Yeah, it's why people listen. I mean, at the end of the day, when you go to someone's house and you have a drink or you're eating dinner together, you're laughing over stories, you know, and it's always that one tío or that one primo that tells, oh, he's going to tell you that one story that, you know, everybody knows about and laughs about. And no matter how many times you hear him tell the story, you're always going to laugh because it's
Yeah,
coming up. That favorite part's coming up. So I like to think that whenever we do our shows, it's like us talking, but it's evolved because we're not our parents,
yeah,
right? Our humor, our tastes differ. They're changing. We have more respect for each other, more respect for our female listeners, more respect for our LGBTQ community. You know, we have respect for all races. You know, like we've been raised around people that are very racist, very bigoted, very sexist, very toxic, and that's just the truth. So when we have our
yeah,
conversations on the on the show, I try to keep that in mind. I'm having a good time. We're talking shit. We're having fun. We're poking fun at each other. But at the same time, you can have that without being a bigot, you know, without being an asshole, without
yeah,
being fucking homophobic. Like you can do that. It's there. You
yeah.
know, I curse, I talk like I mean it is what it is, right? But
Hmm.
I'd rather you laugh at me, make fun of Chikume and you know and his brother Eddie going to some weird orgy in Hawaii than you laughing about me making fun of somebody that's queer, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
So I love that this show has helped me grow too because it's made me change my outlook on a lot of things and recognize like man, like I was raised to believe certain things or make fun of certain things. And thankfully because of people I surround myself with and being around open-mindedness and this show has been good. It's been a good form of therapy like Shikuma says and also a little boost of the ego when people want to talk to you. It feels good. You're like, "Oh shit, yes, I got them." You know, they want to talk to me.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's why I do it, man. And plus my son, he's of the generation of the YouTuber and the Twitch streamer and he's always known that I've done something like this. And I've always told him like, hey man, the minute you want to do something, I'm there. And my wife tells me like, hey, if you don't make it, maybe it's not for you to make it. Maybe it's for your son to make it. And you're going to be the guy behind him. Yeah, he's never going to have a technical issue because you already ran into it, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to my
Yeah.
mom, like, las bendiciones no son para ti, it's for your kids. And that's kind of like, I've kind of moved that along too.
Now that's so true. And the cool thing about it, building a community like this around your podcast, is that what then you can do is redefine what it means to be a Latino or a Latinx, etc. Because on an individual basis, it's good to change your habits and be more aware of how you operate, with respect to other people. But then when you're doing it in a community like this, now you're doing it as collective, and so every person you're talking to, not only as a guest, but also people who listening. Now you're a group collectively redefining, what is Latino, because historically, like you said, there's racism, there's machismo, there's sexism, so on and so forth. And so now we as a collective group, this little word in the big world of Latinos, we're changing what it means, right? um
Yeah, definitely. Because what do they say? El Latino machista, right?
mhm.
El Latino, oh, hey, they're good at doing construction, and that's it. Like, no, like Eddie, my cousin Eddie, which I had on the show a couple of times, a producer on the show. Um, he said something really like, I think we had an interview with a gentleman by the name of say Danny Calvo, I believe. Uh he does comic book as well. He does Andy Starboy.
Oh wow,
Danny
you
Danny
know him?
Danny Di- Danny DeCalvo. Yeah, we had him on the show.
Dope.
Super cool dude. I gotta have him back on. He's a lot of fun. But he and Eddie had a conversation because Shikumi loves sci-fi, the stars and all that, right? He took physics in school. And his brother goes, you know what it is about your sci-fi story is that the fact that Latinos in general have been always been taught to look at the ground and to look at agriculture and construction and building and you know never look at the stars, never look
Mhm.
up to what you can do. It's always been look, keep your head down, look at the ground and look at this stuff here. So the fact that he's working on sci-fi books, it does kind of lift the spirits that we're changing that. We can do sci-fi too. We can do we can do those things. So that really is fun when you can go, oh man, that's cool. My son can look and see, hey, a Latino character is in Marvel book right now. He can turn into
Yeah.
a dinosaur. He can go
Uh-huh.
through time, or hey, here's Andy Starboy. He's doing stuff like a reality show, but about an alien in space. Like that shit's dope. It's like wow, like that didn't happen. It was always the white dude, maybe a black guy, big boob ridden chick. Like
Yeah.
okay, cool. But now we're getting the stuff that represents us.
Yeah, dude. We could write the stories, we create the stories that we want to see, we want to hear. And your son is along for that ride. He's getting to see this. So not only are you redefining, Latino for yourself, but also for your son. And then you can redefine success. Like you mentioned earlier, you said the word make it, quote unquote. Maybe it's not for me to make it. And I would push back and say, let's redefine what make it means, because what does make it means? Like you're making it now. You got
You
you
think?
you got a badass Primo show. You know what I'm saying?
It's thank you, and that's really nice of you to say, man. I'll be like, that's really nice of you to say. I thank you because making it, I guess, is when you can live off of this thing and work on this thing and worry about this thing,
Yeah.
and just be able to kind of go, okay, I wish that I can just write all day.
Hmm.
I wish I can just sit there and think about the next TikTok video or whatever it is now that I gotta make, or the next interview that I'm gonna do. Like I would love to be like, dude, imagine someone tells you, hey man, you know what? Like you can be like the next fucking Larry King, or like, I'm an old man, Charlie Rose. Like all these things that you kind of watch when you're a kid on PBS, and you're like, dude, like this guy got to interview presidents and comedians and actors. Like I would love to do that. and that would be my job. Like I'd be like,
Yeah.
fuck, I made it, you know. But like you said, it is kind of subjective. Like in a sense, like if me doing this inspires somebody else, like that does make me feel good. But then we go back to that imposter syndrome, like, oh shit, am I really that good? Am I really that good?
Yeah, dude, you're that good. And so let me just be straight honest with that. Um, yeah, you're that good, and you're doing really cool stuff. And so I guess that's a really cool goal to be able to stop working, and that's like everyone's goal. Like, can I do this full time? And I was able to do it without, I'm not making really any money off of anything that I do. So it was just all savings, and I got a girlfriend that can support me, which is dope. But
Hey
uh,
man, I ain't mad at that at all.
hell yeah. But I have visions, and I have, I have goals. So as far as like short term and long term, what kind of guests are you, or what do you got planned for Primos or and
So I
your
mean,
creative
to
stuff?
yeah, man, to kind of tell you where we're gonna go or what my goals are, I want My Primos podcast to become My Primos media. Not necessarily just doing podcasts, but doing video. I'm started recording a lot of my podcasts. Like I have, I think about a week or two, you'll see the video version of me interviewing Terry. Like I have that, and so we'll be
Nice.
putting that on there. I want to start doing content where I work with an artist and go, hey man, can you do me like a one shot quick little cartoon that we do like once a month or something. Like I have these things kind of lined up with people, not only to promote them but to promote us. And I have a prima, see, it's kind of connected. She does film. She's doing
Awesome.
film and doing short films and doing that. So her company is called Deaf Eyes. You can look at Deaf Eyes. And that's
DEAF.
where DEAF, yeah, Deaf
Okay.
Eyes.
Okay.
And I want to be able to provide a place where anybody can come. Like you can come and go, hey Freddie, I got a pitch, man. This is gonna do it. Let's give it a shot. Like I want to be able to be, like you said, a Marvel or something like that. But in this climate, using the tools that we do have, like guerrilla style, like hey, people will forgive um how something looks or sounds. If it sounds shitty or if it looks crappy, people will forgive that if the content is good.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've learned through all this. If my audio sucks, if my screen looks shitty, if my graphics look crappy, people will forgive it as long as the content is good and they like you.
Hmm.
And so that's why I want to provide a space where someone goes, oh shit, where is that? Oh, that's my primos media thing, or my oh, let's go check out my primos. Maybe there's something that I'll dig there for me. I have a cousin that works, well, again, a primo that works with cars, and he loves cars, and he
Yeah.
wants to do like a program where people call in live and ask car questions.
That'd be
So
dope.
like, it's just something that I really want this to go, but that's long term. In the short term, it is just um, adding video and start really branching out to work with um, video and producing content on a regular basis, video wise, separate from the podcast that you hear every week. Something additional that you'd have to go to our site or you'd have to go to our YouTube to look at, and it's exclusively there. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm working on short term until I can get to the big dream one day.
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm along for the ride, man. I'm gonna be tuning in to your content, to your whatever your first show is.
Thanks, man. Definitely. I mean, like I said, that's the goal. We're working on it. I really am. And it's funny because everyone that I have really involved is my cousin. They're all primos. And I
Yeah.
always tell everybody, like, man, you're a primo. I'm a primo. Everybody's a primo. So,
Yeah, yeah.
like, that's how I love that fact that we can come together, like you said. And hopefully that's what's going to happen.
Hell yeah. Just gotta keep, I mean, that's all it is, just little by little. How what do they say? How do you build a wall? Brick by brick.
Brick by brick.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Yeah, there's big. It's cool to have big dreams, and I think we can work together a lot down the line as far as my comic book and your comics, and maybe a TV show down the line, which would be whether it's mine or yours or both. I think that'd be
I
cool.
think that, when it comes to the effort, that you put behind it, right? And like I said, I have to just break away from my own little shell
Yeah.
and just do it. Like it is, you're right. Like you're right. I think that because I've never been a guest before, so I've always kind of hidden behind that curtain,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, like of well, I'm the guy asking the right questions. It's my job to make the guest look good. It's my job to get the story told that I think made this person interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want somebody in your show that's just boring. Like, what's the point? Like, if you're boring, I don't want to talk to you. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, you can be nice, but we can't. I'm not going to have a whole show about you.
Yeah.
But I think that I've hidden myself behind that curtain of the interviewer
Yeah.
because it is easy to sit here and just let the person talk. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that same issue, like telling my story sometimes. It's like I'm usually not the guys, um but yeah, you have a really cool story. You've been one of the most interesting guests I've had. Um have you ever had a boring guest on your podcast?
How can I say it? I think that early on, when you don't know what to ask people,
Yeah.
it is your responsibility to guide them, right? So
Yeah.
early on, when I first started doing interviews with people, I would say there are times where there were a couple boring I'll say characters, but guests. I won't point them out, but there'll be guests that come on where you're like, wow, that could have ended 30 minutes ago,
Yeah.
or I had to go back and edit and cut out a chunk of stuff and go, "Ah, this is not even necessary. Like this is junk."
Yeah.
Which trust me, you can cut stuff here. I'm not going to be offended.
You're good.
Because, but point is that yeah, you have to drive the ship, man. So if you see that Freddie's taking too long to wrap it up, you have to be like, all right, well, I'm going to start moving forward to close and be upfront about it. And just be like, hey, man, you know
Yeah.
what, like, hey, you know what, this has been fun, but if you have an agenda, you have to step in and do it. If you don't, it falls apart. Because then, if I could have told that
Right.
guy, "Oh, you know what? Let's move forward from that." I know we didn't. And I
Yeah.
can cut it in post, right? You can go, "Oh yeah, Mister So and So, you mentioned that about about 10 minutes ago. You already mentioned that one, but let's talk about this."
Hmm.
And yes, I was early on. I was afraid to say no. I don't want to talk
Hmm.
about that. Let's talk about this because I was afraid the guy on the other end would be like, "Well, screw you. I don't want to talk to you." So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I've had that happen where people go, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Oh, I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
that. Oh, I don't want to talk about that."
Hmm.
And I go, "Well, then,
What the
what do
hell
you
are
want
you
to talk
doing
about?"
here?
Yeah, what are we here for then? Because I mean, this is gonna be boring, and it's happened, dude. Where I've thrown shows
Yeah.
out. I've
Yeah.
cut shows completely out where I say, "Hey guys, there's no show this week," and I hate doing
Yeah.
that. But it's just like I'd rather not put something out than to put something shitty out there.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm taking notes from you, man. I'm learning as I go. But yeah, I've like your interviews are dope. But I think yeah, we're getting to the end of our time. So where
Nice, nice
where would you like
segue. Look at that.
I'm learning, bro.
There you go, man.
So yeah, where would you like to uh, tell our audience to check you out at and follow your pages?
Well, thanks again for having me on, man. I really appreciate it, dude. And Joshua, I mean, just you have an open invite for our show too. Whenever we want to get that going.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
but every listener, man, you listen to my show is called My Primos Podcast. We talked about fandom, geekdom. We get deep sometimes too. We talk about politics, talk about mental health, talk about our lives. If you dig good conversations from Latinx perspective, on Salvadoreño specifically, check us out at My Primos Podcast. Literally, just type in at My Primos Podcast on any of your social medias on Google. We come up on everything. So check us out at My Primos Podcast.
Hell yeah. And I can vouch for it. One of my favorite podcasts right now. And Freddie, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Definitely would love to have you back on. And whenever you want me on your show, I'm ready to go.
Awesome, man. Definitely. Thanks again, Josh.
All right, man. You have a good evening.
You too, man. Take care.
You too. Peace.